Plato, born in 427 BCE in the city of Athens, was a Greek philosopher, the student of Socrates, and the teacher of Aristotle. Plato later went on to found an academy in Athens. The Republic by Plato is his most famous work, a Socratic dialogue created in 375 BCE discussing various political and philosophical concepts. In the novel, Socrates debates with his fellow Athenians about justice and what the true meaning of justice is. In Book 1 of the Republic, Plato discusses what the true definition of justice is. Book 1 opens with a discussion between Cephalus and Socrates. Socrates asks Cephalus about his age. While this interaction does not encompass a political or philosophical concept, it introduces the reader to the method that Socrates uses to refute others' arguments. Socrates deconstructs a statement into smaller components. Socrates then deconstructs these statements even further by asking questions that show the core concepts on which the statements that he is refuting is built on. Through this process, Socrates is able to reveal the inadequacy of the statement as well as the bias of the statement. The end of this interaction is the transition to the topic of justice in Book 1, in which Cephalus states that justice is speaking the truth and repaying one's debts. Later in Book 1, Polemarchus introduces the idea that justice is doing good to friends and harm to enemies. After inflection from Socrates, Polemarchus alters his statement to be good to the just and harm to the unjust. Socrates finds this definition to be subjective and therefore invalid. Having each individual decide what is and what is not justice, according to them, would create dissension between people on what justice truly is. At this point in Book 1, Thrasymachus states his opinion on what justice really is. Thrasymachus believes that justice is only for the interest of the stronger. To back up his statement, Thrasymachus denotes the different forms of government present. All forms of government are based on power, and those at the top of the government have all the power. Once again, Socrates finds this definition inadequate. Power is too subjective in understanding of justice. Humans are also fallible to err, making this definition of justice not absolute. Socrates continues to deconstruct Thrasymachus' statement through the metaphor of a physician. Socrates asks if a physician in the truest sense is a healer of the sick or a maker of money, which Thrasymachus argues that a physician is a healer of the sick. This proves that a physician heals to serve the human subject. Socrates then uses the same reasoning for that of a ruler, in which the ruler must rule to serve the human subject, not for power or any other means. Thrasymachus responds to Socrates by further defending his arguments. Thrasymachus states that injustice has more strength and freedom and mastery than justice. At this point, Socrates states that the ruler will be someone who does not want to rule. This is because someone who is qualified to rule will not want to be ruled by someone who is less qualified than themselves. By the end of Socrates' analysis, Thrasymachus concedes that just has turned out to be wise and good, and the unjust evil. By the end of Book 1, Socrates concludes that Book 1 did not discover what the definition or the true sense of justice is, but rather was a refutation of previous ideas of what justice is. Socrates then states that, "For I know not what justice is, and therefore I am not likely to know whether it is or it is not a virtue, nor can I say whether the just man is happy or unhappy." To end the short, we will watch a short clip on the Republic. This video will expand on the Republic and its author, Plato.
one of the most celebrated texts written in ancient Greece, all the way back in 380 BC, the Republic by Plato is presented as a philosophical series of dialectics, or discourses to get to the heart or truth of a matter or perspective, comprised of 10 books and presented as an ongoing dialogue between the great philosopher Socrates and a group of assembled scholars who comprise the key characters. Among them are Glaucon, spirited, experienced, and articulate, notably telling the myth of Gyges in order to show people conform to justice only because they do not want to risk punishment for behaving unjustly. Adeimantus, more sober and pessimistic than his brother Glaucon, who complains Socrates seems to have prescribed a life of deprivation, even misery, for the guardians in the ideal state. And Thrasymachus, whose name fittingly means bold in war, and champions a cynical view of justice, claiming it's nothing more or less than the interest of the stronger. His position can be described as might makes right. The Republic delves into the philosophical nature of politics, justice, and government. Now, Socrates himself was Plato's mentor and a landmark figure in the history of Greek philosophy, and more generally, of Greek culture, especially as the latter developed in Athens in the 5th century BCE. Socrates reveals himself in his back-and-forth arguments, rife with examples and allegories, as a supreme ironist, as well as a philosopher pretending to be ignorant in order to expose the ignorance of others. Socratic irony proceeds hand in hand with the Socratic method, a series of questions and answers that probe the issue under discussion even more deeply. This method is sometimes known by the term dialectic. The Socratic method is used today as the principal instruction in numerous law schools and in classes where rhetoric and argument continue to sharpen our always growing minds.